In 1992, the UN Earth Summit resulted in several agreements linked to climate change. The main outcome was the UNFCCC, UN Framework Convention on Climate Change. Signed by 154 countries, it set the base for international cooperation and is the reason why the COP meetings happen annually. I'm Johanna Bota, and with me today is StoneX's Vice President, Carbon Market Strategic Accounts, Nathalie Flores. Nathalie, welcome.
Thank you. How are you, Joanna?
I am doing very well. I'm very excited for a little bit of a history lesson here. So let's go back to 1992. The UNFCCC was established to tackle three problems: climate change, biodiversity, and food security. Here we are 30 years later. Are we closer to any real solutions?
First, I think we need to go back a little bit because what we had in 1992 were the Rio Convention.
Mhm.
So it's what we call today Rio Plus 20. And this convention was put into place, and let's say the gathering itself, because in 1987 countries started to study pollution and
Mhm.
how to protect nature capital. So from Rio, we result in three conventions to protect nature. So one is the UN climate change, which you just mentioned. The other one is UN biodiversity, and the other one it's the desertification convention, which tackles food security and land degradation.
Okay.
So the three conventions were put into place as international treaties to drive change from development, from taxpayer money, from tackling what governments need to do to actually regulate the protection of the nature capital.
So these conventions were instrumental in establishing an international carbon market. Can you tell us a little bit more about each initiative and how they operate?
Yeah, I usually, when I start to have these conversations, I usually talk about the three because even when they are separate treaties, they are interconnected.
Hmm.
Like climate change affects biodiversity, then food security can be affected by climate change, but at the same time, we cannot, put aside the fact that we need to keep it developing our countries, right? And that's where carbon markets come to play a part. The UN climate change ultimate goal is to reduce carbon emissions.
Hmm.
And sometimes, and in my previous role, in which I was serving the UN climate change as vice chair of science and technology, I always say that countries come up with ideas of what I call distractions, right? But the ultimate goal of the convention is reducing carbon emissions. And that's where carbon markets come into place as a tool of risk management, but also finance deployment to protect nature, to abate greenhouse gas emissions, and also allow countries to keep developing while maintaining the temperature of the planet under a cap that countries have been setting in the past years. And all of that comes from the clean development mechanism that was this tool to trade carbon from a framework of international cooperation under another international treaty of the UN climate change, which is the Kyoto Protocol. Kyoto was basically the baseline for what we have today because you had a whole framework for the private sector to develop projects, have a validation from their government, international inventories of greenhouse gases, and then being able to put those credits out there under the UN climate change and make that trading keeping the temperature of the planet at the level that was agreed by the countries. Unfortunately, countries decided they didn't want to renew what the Kyoto Protocol was and
Mm-hmm.
the framework in which it was established, and the countries started to negotiate a new treaty, more ambitious, and that allow the countries to actually be more integrate in what they are doing. And then that's where key players around the world come to drive change when they decided to sign the Paris Agreement.
And that leads us nicely into what role does StoneX play in the carbon market? Can you tell us a little bit more about, for example, some of StoneX clients that you may have?
Yes. I will go back a little bit to the role that StoneX played. So, Carbon Solutions was established in 2022 under the presidency of Latin America, let's say, as a lab to bring risk management and drive change, walking the talk, right? So, with the clients that we have in all other commodities, if we make a product net zero, and that means a product that measures the value change of their emissions, and we can monetize that, we can have a premium in another commodity, but at the same time we are driving climate action, right? And we go back to climate action from the perspective of removing carbon from the atmosphere. And that's why Carbon Solutions as Extonics differentiate, because we can hedge funds, right, to source projects or develop projects that we, of course, hire people to develop projects for our own clients, both to make a value chain of a product net zero, but at the same time, reduce carbon emissions and monetize those environmental passive that they have. If you have a technology, for example, for metal, that it's actually abating your emissions from metals, but at the same time, you can monetize those carbon credits that you have in the technology that you are implementing. It's like a whole circle, right?
So it's a
And
win-win.
now, yes, and now with all the compliance markets that
Mhm.
countries are putting into place with the groundbreaking decisions of COP29, where the Paris rulebook was finalized, now we are in a groundbreaking position to actually help the countries in which we operate to deliver this ambitious goals of reducing the carbon emissions. For example, the market in Singapore, in which our clients need to comply with the carbon tax over there, or in China, or in Australia. And at the same time, groundbreaking decisions of small countries in Latin America or Southeast Asia or Africa, where these host countries are ready to actually put into place an environment for us to develop projects over there, protect nature, and reduce carbon emissions. As I've been repeating, this is the ultimate goal of the convention, and I always put in perspective another treaty, which is the Montreal Protocol,
Okay.
that was put into place to tackle other gases that were affecting the ozone layer, and actually that treaty works, right? Now we have a protected ozone layer, and that's why we put our money into reducing carbon emissions, because we know if we compromise ourselves, we will be able to do that.
Thank you, Nathalie. Obviously, this is a topic that we could go on and on about for many hours, but I appreciate your time. And thank you for watching. For more financial content like this, please like and subscribe to our channel. See you later.